Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first Wellbeing webinar of the new year as part of our Excel Your Well webinar series. Now, we launched this monthly webinar series last year in 2025 with the hope of helping to educate and engage our members and communities on various health topics that support your well-being. So I am so excited to see so many of you here joining us today as we kick off year two. Now, I want to start out by thanking each of you for taking the time out of your day, probably during your lunch hour, to join us here today for our Rewire Your Routine, the Psychology of Building Healthy Habits workshop. My name is Katie Keller-Burgess, and I am part of the Wellbeing team here at Excellus BlueCross BlueShield. So I will be the host for today's webinar, simply teeing up our guest speaker and health plan expert on this topic, Dr. Anne-Marie Mikowski, who I will introduce here in just a few slides. Now, January often sparks a sense of motivation with the idea of New Year's resolutions, right? Really providing a moment when many pause, reflect, and set intentions for who we want to become and maybe habits that we either want to form or potentially break. Now, research consistently shows that behavior change does not rely on willpower alone. It really relies on gaining a better understanding of how our brains function and form routines, what motivates us, and how small intentional shifts can really compound into meaningful transformation for your overall health and well-being. And that's exactly what Dr. Mikowski will be covering here today. Because when our members have the information and tools they need to make small changes to their everyday habits that support their well-being, everybody benefits. Now, just a few housekeeping items that I want to start us off with here today. First off, please note that today's webinar and all of our well-being webinars are being recorded and housed on our Excellus BlueCross BlueShield YouTube page. So if you need to go back and listen to this webinar again, or maybe access a past webinar that you weren't able to attend live, once again, you will have on-demand access to these monthly webinars directly on our YouTube page. Second housekeeping item that I want to call out is that all participants' microphones and cameras are automatically disabled. Now, there will be time at the end of the webinar for questions with Dr. Mikowski. So we encourage you, if you do have any questions at any point throughout today's webinar, to please enter them into the chat feature. So at the top of your Teams webinar, you should see a chat icon where once again, you can enter any questions at any point and we will get to them at the end. And lastly, it is important to note that the content covered here today is meant to be educational in purpose. Of course, if you have any specific health-related question or concern, we do recommend that you connect with your primary care provider, or if you have a benefit-specific question or concern, we recommend that you call the customer care number that is located on the back of your Excellus BlueCross BlueShield member ID card. So with that being said, let's learn a little bit about today's expert speaker. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Dr. Anne-Marie Mikowski. Dr. Mikowski is a board-certified adult psychiatrist and one of our behavioral health medical directors here at the health plan. She attended Canisius University in Buffalo for her undergraduate education prior to obtaining a medical degree at Des Moines University College of Osteopathic Medicine in Iowa. She then returned home to complete a psychiatry residency program at the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences of the University of Buffalo. At SUNY Buffalo, Dr. Mikowski went on to teach numerous didactics for medical students and residents. She also provided clinical and psychotherapy supervision for general psychiatry residents at the Erie County Medical Center Behavioral Health Clinic. Additionally, Dr. Mikowski has been recognized as a regional top doctor in psychiatry by the Buffalo Spree magazine for multiple years. Dr. Mikowski also works as a clinical assistant professor in psychiatry, providing clinical supervision and teaching cognitive behavioral therapy curriculum to psychiatry residents as volunteer faculty. And in her personal time, she enjoys spending time with her husband and 3 children, reading, traveling, and leading a Girl Scout troop through their many adventures. So, Dr. Mikowski, we are so excited and honored to have you with us here today. With that being said, I will turn the stage over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you so much for having me. We're reaching the end of January. So how has the year started off for you? It's a natural time for many of us to be reflective at this time of year. So refreshing our habits and routines is worth spending a bit of time on. Today, we'll review the strength of our habits, how our brain supports them, and how to recognize when they become unhealthy. We'll discuss how to break unhelpful patterns and develop healthier alternatives through simple strategies, ultimately resulting in positive lifestyle changes that can really impact you and your family. Finally, we'll close with some of the resources that can help support you on this habit journey. So, as we said, the new year is the perfect time to reflect and set habits and goals that will help you thrive in the year ahead. It offers the feeling of a fresh start for so many of us as we roll over to a brand new calendar. Fresh starts naturally boost motivation, encouraging engagement. The cultural focus on the new year helps build some accountability and momentum, increasing the chances of our success. Well-being focused resolutions are often very popular and really highlight the importance of physical and mental well-being. Question: what percent of your day is performed out of habit? Well, turns out it's about 43%. This is according to a 2002 daily experience study by Wendy Wood, a behavioral health scientist who studies habits, and her colleagues. This means that if you don't purposefully think about it, roughly half of your day is controlled on autopilot. Why is this? Well, habits serve a critical purpose in making our behavior more efficient, reducing the decision burden we face each day, and freeing up mental energy for more demanding thinking tasks. Here's a little takeaway activity. Next time you take a break, as you're walking around your house or office, note how many things you think you're doing out of habit. Some examples might be, at home could be dropping a towel on the floor or not closing a cupboard door or immediately locking the garage door after coming inside. Mine might be where I tend to sit on the couch in our living room, always ends up being the same, not really thinking about it. Habits are small decisions that you make and actions you perform every day without much conscious awareness. So in some ways, we really are defined by our habits. What you do repeatedly, what you spend time thinking about and doing each day ultimately forms the person that you are. Keep in mind, habits are personal, and most importantly, successful habits are different for everyone. For example, waking up at 5 a.m. to work out may be successful and healthy for one person, but not another. You might say, how could that be? Well, think of this. For one person, the beginning of the day, starting off this way energizes them. Maybe they're meeting a friend for a run and enjoying the win-win of socializing too. And maybe they begin work at 8 and have plenty of time to refresh, even make themselves a nice healthy smoothie before they get there. For another person, waking up at 5 leaves them feeling rushed. Maybe they start earlier, they start at 7 and they're shortchanging their sleep. Actually building a deficit. There's no way they can get to bed earlier than that. So you can see it is going to be different and individual for each person. What's the difference between a habit and a routine? Let's just define this a bit more. We know habits are automatic and often done unconsciously. Wake up, brush your teeth. Routines are a sequence of actions strung together. Often they begin as deliberately planned out and are followed more consciously. They can be helpful in providing structure and a sense of stability for our lives. Organized routines may include many habits put together. So wake up, stretch, brush your teeth, make and drink the coffee, go to check email. Are your habits helpful? If you are curious about your personal habits and have a sense there are things you would like to improve, the first step is increasing your awareness about your already existing habits and routines. So here's another action item. Spend some time thinking about a habit or routine and gather some data on the next week about this habit. Pick something that's important to you and make an effort to be more aware of the things that drive your decisions and your actions around this habit. Some examples to look at might be mindless snacking, how long you exercise, what the first moments of your morning looks like, when you open or look at emails, or how frequently you use a certain app on your phone. Let's look at a very simplistic breakdown of lifestyle change. The example here is for a positive lifestyle change. Keep in mind that this process holds true for building habits that are not as healthy for you as well. Example, building the habits of an exercise routine. We start small with daily choices. I choose to get up this morning and exercise for 30 minutes. There are many small pieces that build into this daily choice. We gain some momentum when it's repeated and start a trend. That daily choice to exercise leads to exercising 3 times a week. The habit routine, some of the conscious effort begins to ease as the trend becomes a tendency. Now I exercise 3 times a week without having to think about it very much. And lifestyle, the habit routine becomes so strong, it feels uncomfortable when the structure isn't followed. Exercising every day is a part of my life now, and I can't really imagine how things would feel without it. How habits work in your brain. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to restructure itself. This is a dynamic, continuous process that allows the brain to build neural connections in response to experiences, the environment, or learning. I like the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. Effectively, this means that when neurons activate at the same time as a response to an event, the neurons become associated with one another and the connections become stronger. There's a neurological process that is at the core of every habit. Behaviors that are repeated are imprinted in neural pathways. Think of walking a path through a grassy area that wears down over time. The more you walk that path, and it becomes more visible and entrenched with walking there and repetition. It's possible to form new habits through repeated behaviors. In order to change your habits, you have to intentionally override your mind in a sense. You're walking over a new part of the grass, and a path won't form without intention and repetition. Another similar visual, think of a path of water on a sandy shore. As the water continues to flow over the sand, the pathway forms a real groove, becomes deeper, more defined. It may start to branch off and take up more room, even forming pathways on top of the old rivulets that are no longer in use. Once the pathways are formed, it becomes more difficult to change the water flow, at least not without effort. MIT researchers shared a simple neurological loop at the core of every habit, a loop that consists of 3 parts, a cue, a routine, and a reward. Examples of a habit loop. So a cue would be coming home, entering the front door. The routine would be walking right to the cupboard to eat a cookie. The reward, it tastes really good. What's the cue for this routine? Let's think a little about the triggers. Is it hunger, boredom, that you need a break before plunging into another task? And what's the reward? The temporary distraction, the enjoyment of how it tastes. Having a reward more strongly reinforces why you do an action over and over again. So here's another action item. We already discussed our first ideas to spend some time thinking about a habit or routine and to gather some data on it. For the next step, here's an exercise you can do. After the activity you're focusing on, jot down on a piece of paper the first 3 things that come to mind. They can be emotions, random thoughts, reflections on how you're feeling, or just the first 3 words that pop into your head. Bonus points if you then pull out this picture of a habit loop and plug the pieces in. So why do this? Again, just building awareness into your existing habit loops. That is a necessary part of the process, creating successful habits to later on when you want to change them. Let's look at some common cues or triggers, and then look at how a habit could be adjusted just by focusing on one of these areas. Cue number 1, time. You may notice you repeat certain tasks mindlessly at different points of the day. Afternoon snacks, smoke breaks, common morning habits, when you drink your coffee or brush your teeth. Notice these things may be neutral, positive, or negative habits. We're just noticing that they're linked by a certain time element. When we start to think about adjusting a habit, time-based cues can be used to help trigger the habit and eventually stick with routines, like going for a walk every day during your lunch break. It's lunchtime, so it's time for walking. Cue 2, location. We mentally categorize habits to a particular location. Your home, office, car, all of these places may be associated with behaviors and routines. A strong example of this, walking through the kitchen and opening the fridge, or a particular cabinet door that has some snacks behind it. This can be pretty mindless, not really gauging hunger intensity or anything associated, just going through motion. If you want to build new habits in familiar locations, you need to overcome the cues your brain has assigned to that area. Maybe we shift to, when I walk through the kitchen, I am going to look for an item that needs to be put away and take care of it instead. Or when I walk into the kitchen, I'm going to think, what was my last meal? And that might help me notice, I ate 2 hours ago and I'm not really hungry. I don't need to do that behavior of opening the fridge. Cue 3, preceding event. Many habits are a response to something else that happens in your life. You pick up your phone, immediately your fingers have opened a particular app with very little conscious thought. How can you switch this up? Maybe making it a point to pick up your phone only with your non-dominant hand, which is much harder to juggle opening that app. You can develop new, healthier habits that tie into preceding events with a little strategizing. For example, when I make my morning coffee, I'll do 10 squats. It's a good association for me. Cue 4, emotional state. I think this one can be the hardest. You may have a habit of eating when you feel stressed or upset, or online shopping when you're bored. To get at this type of cue, you need to be aware of your emotions. So slow down, take a few breaths, and before you act, if you suspect you're engaging in habits based on emotions, that pause can be helpful. For shifting habits rooted in response to emotional stress, this requires different tools. The idea of sitting with uncomfortable emotions until that passes, or getting some additional help in coping through certain emotions, might be needed before you can make real progress on habit change. Maybe one of the most interesting, cue 5, other people. The people you surround yourself with can play a role in your habits and behaviors. In 2007, researchers looked at an interconnected social network of over 12,000 people who were assessed repeatedly from the 1970s to the early 2000s as part of the Framingham Heart Study. The researchers used longitudinal statistical models to examine whether weight gain in one person was associated with weight gain in his or her friends, siblings, spouse, even neighbors. The researchers found that a person's chance of becoming obese increased by 57% if he or she had a friend who became obese in a given interval. Among pairs of adult siblings, if one sibling became obese, the chance that the other would become obese increased by 40%. And if one spouse became obese, the likelihood of the other spouse becoming obese increased by 37%. These effects were not seen among neighbors in the immediate geographic location. Interestingly, persons of the same sex had relatively greater influence on each other than those of the opposite sex. So pairs of friends and siblings of the same sex appeared to have more influence on the weight gain of each other than did pairs of friends and siblings of the opposite sex. Spouses who share much of their physical environment may not affect each other's weight gain quite as much as mutual friends do. Obesity is a very complex state with a multitude of dynamics that influence it. But this is just a really interesting association and brings up many questions we can think about in the context of behaviors and habits. For example, think of a table of friends at a restaurant. If one person orders a salad, do more people follow suit? In addition to such strictly social mechanisms, it is plausible that physiological imitation might occur. Maybe areas of the brain correspond to actions, such as seeing someone chewing some food. It might stimulate some hunger adjacent cues. So there can be lots of reasons why the people around us are important in forming or influencing our behaviors. And if you're really interested in this cool study, it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine and is publicly available. Unhealthy habits are the things that hinder daily function in some way. They may exacerbate health issues, increase stress or anxiety, negatively impact our productivity or finances or relationships. They may be associated with a feeling that they're inevitable and can't be stopped despite wanting to. Often they provide some type of short-term relief, but result in long-term negative consequences. If you are recognizing an unhealthy habit, consider your values and who you would like to be. Look at routines or behaviors that inhibit chances to achieve your ideal. Think about all the information that you've gathered so far about triggers or cues and all of the associated pieces, and then start in one place. You may have several things that you want to address, but decide which habit you want to start with. Too much becomes confusing, overwhelming, and lessens the chance for real impact. Here are the keys to changing an unhealthy habit. Recognize, replace, and repeat. Recognize, be aware that what you are doing is a habit and that you're in a habit loop supporting something unhealthy. Become aware of the trigger or cue, the behavior, and the reward. Replace. Research reveals that our bad habits are most effectively eliminated when replaced by new and more helpful habits. I'm going to dive into habit replacement on the next slide. Repeat. A behavior must be repeated over and over again to turn into a habit. Let's look at some of the techniques for replacing habits. We have an unhealthy habit. We know it's there. We know it's something we want to adjust. So what can we do? We can choose gradual change or swaps. Examples of gradual or incremental techniques. 1, super small it. For example, 1 push-up a day. Make it so small, it would be hard to fail. My example from before, 10 squats while making my morning coffee. That's really hard for me to fail. 2, use the compound effect. If you take a habit and improve by only 1% each day, over time that adds up, just like compounding interest in the world of finance. We often underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis, and too often we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. So I have coffee pretty much every morning. Say I remember to practice this habit for around half the days this year, maybe 182 days. That's 1,820 squats and should result in some powerful glutes. Break it down through the day. For example, if your goal is to become a writer and you're excited by the idea of writing a book, you might aim for writing 60 minutes a day. Finding an hour chunk of time can be daunting, so you break it into 15-minute increments throughout the day. Find a sustainable pace. We've all heard stories, maybe our own, where people start out strong and dramatic only to fizzle out. If you'd like to become a runner but don't have a habit of movement, tasking yourself to run 2 miles may feel grueling, if not impossible. First, building in sustained movement breaks. Then maybe starting one of those couch to 5K type programs. That may be way more effective. Now let's look at examples of swaps. Number one, be thoughtful and ask, is there a better alternative? Maybe a goal is better eating habits for the family. Will my kids really notice if I swap out the regular ketchup for the no sugar added ketchup? Some small change swaps may add up to much less sugar over the course of the month. Multiple alternatives. Let's keep the same goal, healthy eating habits. It's taco night, and I'm going to make a point of adding a few more topping choices to the rotation. A side of black beans and pinto beans to use, corn and chopped tomatoes. Be specific. If the goal is to increase my habit of movement, maybe I set a timer to remind myself to stretch once per hour. And find a habit that provides a similar benefit. I love ice cream, but ice cream is starting to not always love me. Would freezing some of those delicious cotton candy grapes feel more like an indulgent splurge if I reframe it that way? They're sweet, taste like frozen treats. They're about the same price as the point of special ice cream I was going to buy. So maybe I can consider them a dessert this week and just test it out. Recognizing keystone habits. These are important to spend a moment on because they can maximize change potential. Observe behaviors that set a positive tone for your day. Do you feel more focused after a morning workout or a meditation, after having a healthy breakfast? Or maybe the tone is actually set earlier with a good 8 hours of sleep because you stuck to a new bedtime habit. These are examples of keystone habits that have a domino effect through your day. How do you know you've hit a keystone behavior? Or firstly, how do you know that a negative behavior is a keystone behavior? Identify behaviors that, when skipped, disrupt some momentum. If skipping your morning meditation leaves you feeling scattered, or skipping meal prep leads to unhealthy decisions, this could be your keystone habit. Is there one bad habit that sets off a chain reaction? Unchecked doom scrolling, an hour later bedtime means I'm dragging and get up a little later. So I'm rushing, I don't eat breakfast, and the combination of being starved by lunch means I'm really tired and buying the 500-calorie coffee drink to get through things and sort of sluggishly making it through the rest of the day. Some examples of keystone behaviors that are helpful: making your bed in the morning, a set bedtime for quality sleep, a gratitude practice to wind down your day and rest easier, getting in exercise with 10,000 steps. I'll share one that works for our family, making sure we remember to run the dishwasher overnight. When I can empty it first thing in the morning, it's empty, so everyone puts all their breakfast things in there. And that eliminates a step for one person needing to then move all dishes from the sink to the dishwasher later. Make sure we have clean bento boxes for lunches. Helps keep the whole kitchen cleaner somehow with a nice clean sink. Everyone seems cued to be more tidy in general. So I love that one. What are some habits of people you admire and what do they do? Perhaps they've shared things that work for them. One of my mentors, an incredibly knowledgeable psychiatrist, used to wake up at 4 a.m. and read journals while walking on their treadmill. While that may sound very daunting, this worked for them. It was quiet, there was less distraction, it was paired with movement, so it kind of woke up their brain and their body. Exercise is so great for cognitive health, and since it was only done on work days, it felt like a normal part of their workday routine and schedule. So I think that's a great habit to start the day. and really certainly helped my colleague be known as an expert for many years. There isn't one formula for changing habits. There are thousands of strategies out there that could help, though. So here are a few more ideas. Tell someone about your goal. Sharing creates accountability and support, and you never know, perhaps you'll gain a habit buddy trying to do it with you. Visualize your success. Picture what achieving your habit looks like and feels like. The more senses you engage in this type of thing, the more those neural pathways will really activate and strengthen. Update your environment. Create surroundings that support what you're trying to do. Celebrate your progress, not perfection. Acknowledge small wins along the way. Build in some incremental rewards or write down your small daily accomplishments to review at the end of the week. Remove barriers. Make it easy for yourself to follow through by thinking through what could get in the way and then eliminate it. Pair habits with existing routines. Connect new habits to something you already do. When I brew my coffee, I'll fill up a glass of water as well. Track your progress. Use a journal or app to stay accountable and appreciate the steps that you're making. Above all, just be kind to yourself. Habits take time. Setbacks are part of the process because your brain is learning. And if you feel discouraged, think about your why, the why that you're trying to learn this new habit in the first place. So don't be too hard on yourself. Rewiring old patterns can feel hard. And why make it feel worse by repeating negative thoughts about yourself in the process? We mentioned earlier that a behavior has to be repeated over and over again for it to become a habit. We have some information on how long that repetition actually takes. According to a 2009 study, the time it takes to form a habit really isn't clear cut. And as you can see in the slide, there may be additional time for behaviors to really feel automatic. Researchers from University College London recruited 96 people who were interested in forming a new habit, such as eating a piece of fruit for lunch or doing a 15-minute run each day. Over the space of 12 weeks, they found that the average time it takes for a new habit to stick is 66 days, or the time it takes for the behavior to become more automated. Although the average was 66 days, there was marked variation in how long habits actually took to form, anywhere from 18 days to 254 days were noted for the habits examined in this study. Individual times had a lot of variation, as did the type of habit. Think of this, drinking a daily glass of water became automatic very quickly, but doing 50 sit-ups before breakfast required much more dedication and time. This makes sense to me since we're all different, and some activities like running are really comprised of multiple step routines that have to be followed and enforced. So often many variables and logistics to work with. Starting a running routine from no exercise is very different than adding in 15 minutes of running to an established gym routine at a certain time of day that you're used to. Maybe you're already doing cardio on a stair climber. Switching to running is not going to be that hard to adjust and will probably be much quicker to implement. This study is also available online and is from the European Journal of Social Psychology, if anyone's interested. A few thoughts on habits and children. We all know how important it is for children to learn good habits, habits to develop strong social skills, manners, healthy food choices, and physical activity. All of these start at an early age. Parents, siblings, grandparents, teachers, coaches, they're main role models and influencers for children when it comes to developing healthy habits early in life and translating into lifelong benefits. As we reviewed earlier, it takes time and repetition of habits and behaviors to become routine. There is a wealth of information supporting the benefit of routines for healthy development. So our daily actions matter and sometimes require an extra level of patience to implement in a family. Kids learn by watching and modeling. So one of the best ways to develop good habits for kids is by trying to share good habits together. There are many good, healthy habits that families with kids can develop. And this is one example that I really love, the development of a reading habit. You can apply this model to many other behaviors, but encouraging reading is one of those amazing keystone habits. Here are some simple tips: repetition and practice. So reading is an excellent daily habit to get into. Modeling good behavior by reading in front of your child. I'd rather they see me reading a book instead of scrolling on my phone when I have a little bit of downtime. Create a supportive environment. I don't turn on the television in the morning. Our living room is often a really cozy reading space. In the winter, I flip on the fireplace, we snuggle under blankets, and we often read before school. This is like real life. It actually does work for us. Let your child pick what they read. We've gone through plenty of book phases. I'm not worried if they're, into graphic novels right now or only want to read about princesses. Their interests will change, and it's more about the process and the love of reading that matters, more so than the content. So that's just one example, but you could see how that would translate to other types of behaviors. So wrapping up, habits change our lives and overall well-being. Awareness is the first step towards change, and small, consistent changes lead to big results. Our action steps, let's review them. Spending some time thinking about a habit or routine and gathering some data on it. Use cues and triggers to our advantage to identify some keystone habits for greatest impact. And start with one thing for most benefit. Importantly, give yourself some compassion because your brain is learning, and learning takes time. It's a process. So with that, I will go ahead and let Katie go forward and talk about some of the ways that we can support that.
Dr. Mikowski, thank you so much. That was so much great information. I was able to personally take some great takeaways from there as well. So we'll get to questions here in just a second, but wanted to take a few minutes to review some related benefits that are available through the health plan. I do want to call out that the benefits and resources that I'm going to cover here do vary by contract. So once again, we do encourage you to call the customer care number on the back of your health insurance card to verify benefit eligibility if interested. So first up, I want to mention our Find a Doctor as well as our cost estimator tool available on our Excellus BlueCross BlueShield online account as well as through the mobile app. You're able to find a doctor or provider that suits your needs. Maybe it is looking for a behavioral health provider, or maybe some additional providers, once again, that are going to support your well-being and help to build those healthy habits. So through these tools, you're able to find doctors, specialists, urgent cares, hospitals, and more, as well as potentially estimate and really budget for out-of-pocket expenses based on your plan. So we do want to call out, it is important to log into your online account to really help gain the most customized results based on those tools. Next up, I want to quickly give a plug for our care management team here at the health plan. So we have a care management team inclusive of a variety of healthcare professionals, including registered dietitians, behavioral health specialists, physical therapists, and more, who are all here on the back end to help support our members of all ages, wherever you may fall on your well-being journey. So that can be from maybe little questions, maybe looking to eat healthier and wanting to connect with one of our registered dietitians. Or maybe if you're dealing with complex health conditions and looking for that added support, any support and engagement with our care management team is free of charge. And once again, our team is here and ready to help engage. So you can contact them through phone, email, or members are able to download the WellFrame app for free. And through WellFrame, be able to be provided a variety of resources, tools. You can see some of the conditions that can be supported through WellFrame and our care management team around potentially certain types of conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, or maybe more behavioral health around stress management, depression, etc. So another great benefit, and if interested in connecting with them through WellFrame, the access code to utilize is Excellus Welcome, all one word, all lowercase. Up next, Thrive Well, a digital home base for eligible members' health and well-being. Through Thrive Well and our partnership with Personify Health, eligible members are able to engage within the platform to really track and build upon those healthy habits that Dr. Mikowski alluded to. There is a nice health check, health risk assessment survey that really helps to identify areas of opportunity that you can improve on for your well-being, whether it be physical activity, nutrition, stress management, and more. There's a variety of tools, resources, coaching, etc., to really once again help you stay on top of those healthy habits. And last but not least, Blue 365 is an online marketplace where eligible members can save money by getting discounts on health and wellness related products and services from retailers around the country for things such as fitness gear, gym membership discounts, and more. So we encourage you to check out Blue 365 at blue365deals.com, and once again, see if any of those deals or discounts are a good fit for you to support your well-being. So we're going to get into questions in just a second here, but with that being said, I want to give a quick plug for our February Wellbeing webinar on the topic of the silent threat, how to recognize and prevent heart disease, with February being American Heart Month. One of our case managers and registered nurses will be covering what heart disease is, risk factors, prevention strategies, and once again, some additional benefits and resources available through the health plan. My colleague Kate just put in the chat, thank you, Kate, the link directly to register for that upcoming webinar if interested, as well as a QR code here on this screen. And once again, if you want to quickly snapshot that with your smart device, that will bring you to the registration page as well. So with that being said, let's get into questions. Once again, do want to call out to use the chat feature if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask Dr. Mikowski. Once again, all participants' microphones are automatically disabled. So if you do have a question, please feel free to enter it into that chat. We'll give it a couple minutes. Quick question, Dr. Mikowski, that just came in. How do you recommend adapting habits during busy seasons or maybe high stress periods of life?
That's a great question, because it seems like there's always more and more high stress periods. I don't know. Everything always gets harder and harder sometimes. So I would go back to those basics of just trying to take a pause and observe what's happening first, because you may have to reprioritize. What are your basic, most healthy keystone habits? What is going to be most impactful? So just being willing to kind of look at things each time, reevaluate, because things will have to be tweaked. Life is a process. It's very easy for us to fall into things that are sometimes not as helpful, right? So it is okay during busy seasons to regroup.
Absolutely. Somebody asked about that app again. That was well framed to connect with our care management team. So you can download that from a smart device on either Apple app or Google Play Store. And once again, when registering your WellFrame account, that access code is Excellus Welcome, all lowercase, all one word. Another question, Dr. Mikowski, how can teams in the workplace support each other in building healthier habits and routines together? Any tips around that?
Yeah, so we talked about it with modeling for kids a little bit, having, the ability to present a habit that you want to be perpetuated, right? And we talked about those social connections, the study that really kind of highlighted how strong friend connections are. While it didn't look at coworkers in a workplace environment specifically, I think there is still a translation of some of that information where our social connections, even in a workplace, are going to translate into habits that we share together. So if you are someone who is in a team and want to promote best habits, being able to model that behavior, hopefully will extend to the rest of your team.
Absolutely. I know my walking pad for me personally, I love to use it on meetings and oftentimes hear others say I'm a little bit of motivation for them as well. So agree, it can really help to build that little bit of psyche there. Next question. What do you recommend when someone is doing all the things for healthy habit changing, but maybe food noise to sneak in a sweet snack or something not great is really making it impossible to stick to healthy choices? Any tips around that?
Yeah, I mean, remember that when we talked about obesity as an example, that is a complex medical issue. There are a lot of hormones and cues biologically that are also part of this process. So while our habits, we can be aware mentally and very cognizant of these things, we might need additional help and support in some of these areas. There are also biological pieces at play. So, talking to your healthcare provider and getting some information so that, especially if it feels like you are trying your best and still struggling, that's a perfect time to reach out and get some help from your healthcare provider, your therapist that can help support these lifestyle changes if they're hard. Trying to get more information and support is always a good idea.
Absolutely. And once again, a plug for the registered dietitians, part of our care management team. I think they have some great tips, tricks to maybe once again help with that little bit of psychology behind the food choices we are making. My colleague Kate, once again, I do want to call out that we have a post-webinar survey. We do encourage each of you to take a few minutes, complete that survey, give us your feedback on today's topic, as well as future topics that our members are interested in hearing more about, so we can really help gear these webinars towards our members and what they want to learn more about to support their well-being. Let's see, another question that came in. Dr. Mikowski, I'm not sure if you have this, but is there a walking pad that you may recommend? Anything from your perspective?
I actually don't have a good recommendation. I have no idea what brand is best, or I'm not following like the consumer reports on walking pads. I just don't know. There's probably a lot of good ones out there, so can't
I
really endorse
agree.
one
I would say
specifically.
that I have a multitude of friends. We each have our own different brands, going on Amazon or whatnot and typing in, looking at the reviews to see what's the best fit for you based on speed, what the different types of things can do, whether it's incline, etc. Some people are already putting in the chat some good ones that they have as well. So thank you for that feedback there. But yes, definitely a good way to help get some additional steps in throughout the day. All right. Well, that was all the questions that have come through. So once again, we appreciate everyone taking the time to join us here today. Once again, if you have a couple minutes to take that post-webinar survey, we truly appreciate the feedback. Dr. Mikowski, thank you once again. A lot of great comments in the chat once again for the feedback on the information presented here today. So we are so appreciative for your expertise and passion around this topic. Hopefully everyone will be able to take something away and implement it into their day. As mentioned, if any future questions, please reach out to your customer care number on the back of your health insurance card, and we'll hopefully see you for the webinar in February. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.